this is not Atlanta. This is the New York Times. America 2020, where everyone has rights and no one has responsibilities, by Thomas L. Friedman. Oh my God, thank you, Thomas. All right. The conflict between Neil Young and Joe Rogan over the anti-vaccine propaganda, Rogan is spread. So that's a given, guys. That's not the point of debate here, right? Through his podcast, triggered a heated debate over the boundaries of free speech on platforms like a Spotify, and whether one entertainer, Young, had the right to tell Spotify to drop another, Rogan. I mean, this motherfucker, why do you write like that? Why? Just the fucking, anyway.
Yeah, they love those M dashes.
It's just like, who talks like that? What do you think this is? Like your Voltaire in like 17th century? Anyway, sorry. Just Rogan, Young. Anyway, or he would leave himself. But this clash was about something more than free speech. Really, Thomas, was it? As a journalist. By the way, again, I would like to clarify, we are not journalists. I don't know what journalism is. Whatever it is, it feels like equivalent of like a prophet. Like I'm a journalist, follow me.
That is true from all sides in a way sometimes.
Yes. As a journalist who relies on freedom of speech, I would never advocate tossing Rogan off a Spotify. But as a citizen, oh my God, the Greek citizen, Thomas Friedman, I sure appreciate Young calling him out over the deeper issue. Colin. I mean, again, who puts Colin? How is that even? How is that we have morphed into a country where people claim endless rights while fewer and fewer believe they have any responsibilities?
Again, one more time, whether this is, I mean, maybe this is even right, but how do you know that 10, 15 years ago, these things bother me a lot. This wasn't the case, right? Where people didn't
I agree
and behave in this exact same way, that they had rights and responsibilities. Like, how do you know that we've morphed into a country? I mean, I know you've been alive for a little bit, so maybe at least
have some evidence.
That's how, but these kind of things bother me so much.
Look, I do think there can be analytical arguments made for a case that, for example, I mean, again, I think it's cyclical, but I do think, for example, you could argue 70s, there were more, let's say, family values, blah, blah, blah. There are arguments to be made, but he's not making those. He's doing this. He is a rhetorician. You know, he's all about a style. I love, like, Thomas Friedman, he's always about on this hand, and on this hand, and on the other hand, and on the balance. I, as a journalist, but as a citizen, but as a media person, I don't know.
They don't see the irony, though, with all the even though how bulletproof they are, with all the scandals that they've been hit from Iraq war and all the other ones, he still can write that, you know, you have a responsibility to your fellow citizens. So that's from like the next paragraph. Like, how did they forget?
Yeah,
I mean, you need this kind of.
Man. They ask the guy from Institute, why are you
True, I love how the Institute guy comes into an opinion piece as if they're like, okay, it's everything. But read that paragraph before too about, you know, responsibility to your fellow citizens.
So exactly. So I mean, as always with opinion pieces, and we discuss this, you know, there is always sort of, you trinkle a bit of bullshit scientism to sort of add to your heft of your, you don't want to actually engage with scientific arguments. You just want to trinkle a bit for the idiots for those of little learning to be attracted. So, quote, we are losing what could be called our societal immunity, argued Dov Seidman, by the way, D-O-V, I don't know how is that name pronounced, Dov Seidman, founder of How Institute for Societal Immunity, quotation mark, societal immunity is the capacity for people to come together, do the hard things, and look out for one another in the face of existential threats like a pandemic or a serious challenge to the cornerstones of their political and economic systems, like the legitimacy of elections or a peaceful transfer of power. This is Trump. This is like, you could replace that whole sentence with Trump.
Yeah.
Like, with the elections, legitimacy of elections and peaceful Trump. We are scared of Trump.
I mean, he's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing as Johann Hari did, as Thomas Friedman did, without any kind of evidence. And you can find a million anecdotal examples that go against what he's saying, that back in the day, there were people looked after each other, and everybody was doing what was best for everybody else. I mean, I can't believe, if there wasn't World War II during the past century, I don't know how people would look back in the past century and stuff. I mean, thank God there are these clear, obvious, not thank God that they happened, but that there are these clear examples that show how messed up society also was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years, 10, 15, and so on and so forth. But they can still put these theories of how things are so specifically unique right now and changing in this way without putting forward any kind of evidence. So yeah, back then, Sam, you didn't know about this capacity for people to come together, do hard things, and look out for one another in the face of existential threats. Definitely, I've seen that. Yeah.
Sorry, again.
Everybody, all white people in the US used to come out and be like, I'm not doing one more thing until Black people have the same rights as me. Oh, you haven't heard of that. You haven't heard of that.
Man. I'm sorry, man, but it shows your lack of, historical knowledge. All those white people that came together, put on those white hats together, joined forces to, perform pogroms on Black people. In Russia, all throughout history, people would come together in the village with, torches and all that, and then burn the Jewish people. All these group activities that you used to have, all these great examples of unity, of people coming together. There was like a pandemic, you would blame it on a lady in the town who was like a witch or something, and then you would burn her, and then the pandemic would obviously get better. So I feel like you're just like to criticize for the sake of
unfortunately, I really don't know anything. But Sam, I'm kind of reading and discovering this article with you right now, with everybody else, and I just cannot believe what I read in the first 2 sentences of the following paragraph.
Okay, go ahead. You read it then.
Okay. So he first goes, but societal immunity is a function of trust. I mean, I would usually stop right there and have fun with that. But then he goes, disclosure. Seedman, the guy, he just is a donor to my wife's museum. Planet Word. I think we kind of have to stop here to be completely. I mean,
I love Thomas. I love the disclosure.
Does he go on to explain how maybe this person is the only one in the world who has this kind of knowledge? I mean, there might still be a reason to talk to someone or base this article on someone who donated. It doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't know anything or he's irrelevant, but come on.
No.
They're taking this opinion thing a bit too far. It's not.
Are they?
It's called opinion, not bullshit. There's
the borderings of a madman.
Joe Rogan should just call his shows opinion, and then by this standard, everything's free game. Oh Jesus.
Oh my God, it was so good. But man, look, let's I just wanted to get to this. I wanted to read this thing about the it gets very scientific. Let's fast forward through a couple of paragraphs.
The disclaimer kills me though. He's a donor to my wife's museum.
He's not even trying to hide it. Yeah, my wife money.
He didn't donate to something where he lives or his kid's school. No, straight up. He sends a check to my wife every week. Like,
At least, man, you work at New York fucking time. At least go out of your way to interview somebody who's not a donor to your wife.
You're telling exactly in New York, you're telling me, or anywhere else in the world, you couldn't find somebody else who would immediately answer to a response to, of course, be featured in the New York Times.
By the way, exactly with the same bullshit.
I've been like these people who are like journalists like him, and people want to be on their shows. I've seen. I was working. They send emails that are one sentences. They're not like, oh, can you please come on my show? They're like, looking for blah 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 expert ? And everyone wants to be featured in the New York Times. They jump immediately. They're like, yeah, of course, I'm free tomorrow, today, whenever you want, let's talk. So it's somebody couldn't find somebody
Thomas
else.
is tired. Thomas just had he was probably the last guy who called him Dove, whatever his name is. I don't know, but yeah, he was like, he was talking to his wife, whatever, Jane, let's say she's called Jane, how's Dove? Can you call him and ask him about? I mean, the level of research, anyways, because the Rogan podcast episodes that set off the controversy, an interview with Dr. Robert Malone, who has gained fame with the discredited claims, completely ignored the 4 most important statistical facts about COVID today that highlights our responsibilities. I mean, even if the statistics are right, we'll get to responsibilities.
And anyway. I see he actually quoted as a McKinsey study in here as well.
Yeah.
And his friend, my friend, Dr. Stephen Packer, president and CEO, Mortgage Health and Community Hospital, Montreal, California. Jesus.
It's for Thomas Friedman, New York Times opinion pieces are really, I figured this out after like a couple of years, that it's basically he's showing off the people like, ooh, look, I know Mohammed bin Salman. Ooh, I'm in Dubai hanging out with this sheikh. Look at me. I know this guy. He donates to my wife, which is a bit of a weird anyway. But to our fellow citizens, even more so to the nurses and doctors risking their lives to take care of us in a pandemic. By the way, this is a side note, just Sam controversial take there. I'm sorry, but doctors, nurses, different story, but doctors, some of the highest paid people on earth. I'm sorry, it's like army people that you have to feel sorry for soldiers. Yeah. I'm sorry, but what did you think you signed up for when you become a doctor?
Doctors,
you thought you're gonna
for sure
nose jobs for the rest of it.
And Sam, actually, nurses. I mean, I'm willing to bet that if you surveyed nurses in the US and around the world, 30 or 40% would fall on the side of like arguments made on Joe Rogan's show and Dr. Malone when it comes to COVID. I mean, so many of them, so many of them don't want. Yeah, so that's the irony. Like, he's trying to bring them up to defend. I mean, I've seen it anecdotally. You see the stats on those who don't want to get vaccinated. You see the strikes that they've done and walking out and all these protests. So he'd actually be surprised that so many of them don't agree with the official narrative around COVID.